Also prioritizing the issue of rural broadcasters. That has been pending for some time, ever since they communicated to the speaker. So I'm happy that we are able to interface. It has been a fairly difficult timing with most of our members at the countryside with these elections and election petitions and whatnot. So we are actually preparing for most of our future meetings. In the meantime, we might be having them on, we shall have them virtually, online. So, but we felt, since we were informed there are teams that have been coming from up country, like I'm seeing the representative from Eastern and the other parts, we should spare time and have this direct interface so we know each other very well. Even if we're doing other follow-ups, we shall be all right. I want to thank also the UCC for being here and always listening to the issues. This particular meeting came about after the petitioners who are here approached Parliament through the Speaker and raised a number of issues and prayers, which we think, as a committee and the ministry, we should be able to find a workable solution to. The culture we have adopted mainly is to avoid too much pulling of ropes. We are in these positions to offer solutions, and so it's important that we have that mindset so that we can move forward and help the sector to grow. I want to thank the petitioners for the faith they have in Parliament, and want to encourage them to continue to believe that the Parliament is here to listen, and that Parliament certainly will work with every stakeholder. We want to support the ministry, support the agencies, but also support the stakeholders that we are out there to serve, so that in most cases we are able to find a middle ground. I should restate the commitment of Parliament through this committee to support the sector all the time and helping to resolve issues and bring about other reforms that we think can be helpful for the sector's growth. Yeah, so I also equally apologize for the delay. We got a lot of continued concern from our petitioners about the delays, but like I've mentioned, the timing has been challenging, but also we have been processing many petitions. Even last week, we again met with the ministry and UCC, handling another set of petition, and I think it is progressing very well. So we are hoping that since the petitioners wrote, and also we have seen responses from the ministry, this particular meeting will largely highlight the salient areas that you are not necessarily going to go to the specifics, and we shall engage other missing details. We will put in writing and then send them to you. However, just for the noting again of the ministry of the minister and the technical team, there are a couple of issues that were raised by the petitioners, some of them very, very concerning. And when the minister is making her quick response, probably some of the areas will be highlighted on. Otherwise, the background to this petition is that on 23rd of March 2014, the UCC directed all licensed radio and television stations to broadcast government programs for free. And it was broken down as follows. One, that 1 hour talk show in prime time for government to disseminate its programs. Number two, they expect the licensed broadcasters to air live national events like budget speech, State of the Nation address, and other important national events. Number three, play jingles, announcements, DJ mentions, promoting government programs. So the Rural Broadcasters Association is petitioning Parliament against the directive, and they have the following prayers. That the government 1 hour free airtime should be scrapped off completely. That is one. Two, radio stations should continue to air only national events like budget speech, State of the Nation address, and the presidential addresses. Three, that ministries, departments, and agencies should budget and pay for the activities that require their services. And so within these three areas, the petitioners will just briefly give the context, the rationale for this prayer. But I also know that these directives were made way back in 2014. I don't know whether there has been any review. We also know that with this COVID, so many sectors, players, businesses have been hit. And I know the broadcasters are here to serve the public, but also they are there to make some little dividends so that they continue to serve the people. And I don't know whether this is squeezing air out of them. And we need to be able to look at it, Madam Minister and the UCC. So the committee is interested, and we think that the petitioners are stakeholders who are conducting socio-economic activities in Uganda's ICT sector. It is a collection of media owners involved in the community broadcasting. From their record, you have 160 community radios. You have 4 online news platforms. You have 10 televisions. And you have regional presence in 14 regions of West Nile, Acholi, Lango, Teso, Bugisu, Sebei, Bukedi, Busoga, Central Region, Bunyoro, Toro, Ankole, Kigezi, and Karamoja. Ruba also is indicated they are working with what they are calling the media monitoring firms. So, unfortunately, the petitioners didn't submit to us apart from these statistics, the details of this membership, which we think is important for us to have. On the issue of the provision of free airtime, government policy, the provision of free airtime to government is now a government policy embedded in the law by the Uganda Communications Regulations 2019, that Parliament approved. Regulation 20H of the Uganda Communications Licensing Regulation states that the Commission shall ensure that broadcasting services provide airtime for public service announcements from government intended for dissemination to the public. By this regulation, the Commission guarantees to provide airtime to government for its announcements, and the broadcasters claim it is now a condition for the license provision. However, the committee does not have the license agreements between UCC and the broadcasters to facilitate the committee to understand how the regulation is being applied relative to the broadcasters. For example, are the broadcasters being mandated to provide airtime? And if they fail, is there a punishment? And what kind of punishment is being given out to this group? As I conclude, there is an aspect which I think drew our attention very, very closely. The allegation by the petitioners concerning the policy is serious because it implies loss of goodwill and funds to government and businesses. Robert states that the airtime was provided to government, but the broadcasters annually lose approximately 412,800,000 because of the following. And the minister, you need to pay attention to this, that some government officials do not turn up to disseminate government information, and yet the broadcasters have turned away potential advertisers. I think this is very serious and probably unfortunate if it is true that you have asked for prime time, advertisers are looking for that same time, government officials don't show up. And that's very unfortunate. Number two, that some of the resident district commissioners and other district officials divert some of the talk shows budgeted for into free government airtime. So now you have a scenario where people have budgeted and government has provided money, but this money is secured but not used for that purpose. They are all running now for the free time, and from another area it is budgeted, is reflected as money being spent. And then three, that MDAs no longer budget and include media buying. And Minister, you realize last year we provided money under central media buy. And the idea is that ministries, departments, and agencies receive money to be able to run their activities. And we know this money exists with you in the ministry. So we want to know how this is playing out in the circumstances. The committee should have access to the following to help us have analysis. One, RUBA should provide the list of its broadcasters and media monitors showing their location and ownership. B, RUBA and the Ministry of ICT, Stock UCC should provide copies of the broadcasting license agreements to the committee. C, RUBA should provide the list of the programs for which government officials did not turn up as scheduled, showing the direct scheduled official, showing the district, the scheduled official, and the topic for discussion. Because I think as the Minister of National Guidance, you are supposed to guide the country. If government information cannot reach the population, and yesterday we observed the International Day for Freedom for Access to Information, And Uganda was, according to a report we saw from one of the NGOs, ministries and agencies are denying information to the public blatantly. So it's a matter that the committee is going to handle at a later time. Then RUBA should provide the list of programs for which the RDCs and government officials, because this is a strong allegation, and I think we need to take it up seriously. Officials diverted, budgeted for talk shows into free government airtime. Ministry of ICT should provide a detailed list of broadcasters it has engaged under the media buying activities. Because we said under the purview of the national guidance, and in an effort to streamline government communication, avoid duplication and blah, 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 money is now being provided for the ministry to centrally plan for it. But we are having information that there is no transparency. And some media houses take the lion's share, and the other media houses are going with nothing. And yet all of them are required to provide free airtime during national events, presidential addresses, and all of that. So we would want a detailed list of broadcasters so far supported under the central media buy. And then, in the meantime, and as I conclude, we're asking the minister the following questions. Why was this policy introduced by the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance? Of course, it was introduced in 2014. Why was it introduced? Are the reasons that were advanced by the ministry in 2014 still suitable in the current circumstance? Should the TVs continue implementing the directive? What are the media monitoring firms? What are media monitoring firms, and what is their business, and how many are they? So those specifics we shall need. Otherwise, this was to provide context to what we have, and now I will give opportunity to the minister to make her remarks. Then we will expect, especially in line of areas I've highlighted, or any other area that is important to the petitioners, that they should highlight before the minister will guide us on who will come first, whether your commissioners or the UCC. Thank you so much for your audience. Let me invite the minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I want to thank you for that elaborate presentation. And I want to confirm that through you sent the petition to us, we received it and had a number of engagements with UCC and within the ministry. First of all, allow me to thank you for the cooperation and support you have rendered to our ministry. With your support, we are registering some success in the effort to develop the dynamic, vibrant, and productive ICT communication media industry in Uganda. Honorable Chair and Honorable Vice Chair, I have noted the petition to Parliament by RUBA regarding the free airtime on radio and television for communication of government programs. It is true, Honorable Chair and Honorable Vice Chair, that broadcast media houses are availing the said airtime for purposes of informing, educating the public about government programs and policies. The programs also ensure that government receives feedback about the suitability, accessibility, and quality of programs being implemented. Because through these talk shows, normally we get feedback as government, which feedback helps us to correct all look at the challenges being provided for, depending on a particular area or a particular district. So we believe that this airtime is useful to the government. And as you know, Honorable Chair, the government of Uganda, through ministries, departments, and local government, there is only one way we are able to identify these gaps. It is through interaction. Because if we don't interact with the people on the ground, it becomes very difficult for us to achieve what government has planned in one way or another. So it is a tool for mobilization, and it helps us to also achieve our development agenda as a country. The policy framework for the airtime. Members, as you may be aware, government liberalized the airwaves in 1992 as part of the efforts to promote a free and vibrant media in Uganda. As a result, our media terrain has changed tremendously, with Uganda having more radios and television stations than any other country in the region. As you may also be aware, broadcasting licenses are also public goods, and the terms and conditions are such that these broadcasting stations should also serve the interests of our society. And indeed, when you look at Section 39 of the Uganda Communications Act, 1 says that the Commission shall prescribe the terms and conditions of all operators licensed under this Act. Then Schedule 6, Section 2, subsection B states that the licensee shall, in the case of a broadcaster, allocate time for the coverage of national events and functions. The proposal that licensee provide 1 hour a week was born of the realization that national functions and events are many in the year, and you'll find that such events take some good hours. They take between 3 to 5 hours each, and they are spread throughout the year. So we realized that through that engagement, part of that airtime can be used to educate the public on what government is doing in the communities, so that we don't have a vacuum. Because if people are not informed, they will definitely complain about service delivery, and also a number of issues are bound to be aired if we create that gap of not giving out the required information to the public. In this regard, the ministry proceeded to develop guidelines for utilizing the said free government airtime in consultation with stakeholders including the National Association of Broadcasters, NAB, and UCC. During the consultation, the 1 hour proposition was reviewed and agreed upon. This was in the spirit that the bulk of the airtime be retained by the broadcasters for their editorial and business commercial content. And indeed, of the 168 hours in a week, Government of Uganda utilizes just 1 hour per station as free airtime, which represents 0.6% of the total available airtime per radio station in a week. Government is indeed among the advertisers placing messages under this airtime retained by broadcasters for business-oriented content. Consultations were done about the free airtime. Honorable Chair and Honorable Vice, like I have noted above, the process of agreeing to this airtime was highly consultative. Meetings in this regard were hosted by the then Minister of Information and National Guidance, the Honorable Rose Namayanja, with the participation of UCC and broadcasters in the various regions in Uganda. The final consultative meeting was held in Kampala with participation of UCC and National Association of Broadcasters. At this meeting, the guidelines for utilizing the airtime were also reviewed and agreed upon in a meeting. Honorable Chair, as far as I know, RUBA is part of NAB. And in this regard, my understanding is that RUBA is bound by the positions agreed upon with NAB, including the said free airtime. The way forward, government of Uganda seeks to maintain the utilization of free airtime, the 1 hour per station per week, so that the broadcasters can retain the other 167 hours for their editorial and commercial programming. My ministry has been engaging with and remains available to engage with NAB, RUBA, and indeed other media actors to maintain a mutually beneficial relationship. And I would also want to comment on some of the issues that were raised by the Honorable Chair, because Honorable Chair was asking, why is government failing to use the allocated airtime? You will give me an opportunity to call in my commissioner to give you information on what has been happening, because what we know, the RDCs and district officials are supposed to utilize that airtime. And I would give an example of my district, Mitiana, where I come from. Usually, I think every Tuesday, the RDC utilizes that 1 hour to educate the public about what is taking place, the different government programs that are being implemented, and in case of anything, district officials come in to beef up the RDC to educate the masses. And these programs have been very interactive. When you look at what is happening now in this era of COVID, you realize that this airtime actually is needed, even where possible. If it can be doubled, the better, because the public needs to be educated consistently to understand what needs to be done, how they can protect themselves, and also how they can help government to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our communities. So I believe that where RDCs have not been in position to use the airtime, we will be more than happy to get the details of the respective districts, and maybe as government we shall take a position basing on those reports, because if we give a generalized report, then it becomes very difficult for me as a minister to make any step if information is not given. You give us the information, this person was supposed to appear on such and such a radio station during such a time, but they failed at the last hour. They told us we cannot make it. So that as government, we can be in position to pronounce ourselves. But without that information, it becomes very difficult. Because I would give an example of Kampala. You realize that in Kampala, most of the airtime is utilized. And even in the districts, most of the airtime is utilized, because the radio stations per district, there are not so many. You realize the district has 1 or 2 stations. And remember, 1 hour per week. So that 1 hour, we cannot lose it as government. It is very important that as government we utilize that 1 hour to educate the masses. And through media buying, the ministry has been supporting. It's not only that we are getting free airtime from the broadcasters, but government supports through media buying. There are a number of instances where RUBA and NAB members have been supported by government money to run different programs, to run different campaigns on behalf of government, and in a way we are supplementing each other through that collaboration. So I would pray that as part of the social corporate responsibility, at least this airtime remains for government officials to use it to educate the masses. Where challenges are, if they are pointed out, we will be in position to address them as a ministry. With those few remarks, once again...
Yeah, Madam Minister, thank you so much. Maybe before you conclude, there are 2 areas that would want you to clarify on. One, is your ministry having a structured policy of following through these weekly programs and giving guidance on content development and probably receiving either quarterly or monthly reports on the performance and the challenges. Because whereas the petitioners will provide for us some of the information, we would expect that the ministry that is in charge has information regarding on how you are engaging with the media, and how government programs have been structured to be run. Secondly, you also note that with the challenge of COVID, government actually is much more in need of more airtime and probably should double. We will also be interested in knowing, because there were complaints which we knew the committee will be handling at a later time, when government made interventions during the onset of this COVID. There was money that was allocated to support media houses in the dissemination of this information. We are interested in seeing how this was implemented across the country, and probably if everybody was on board, and if this committee can still help with the pushing Parliament to support you to continue with that. But I think it's still a gray area on the successful campaign, how it was handled, and how many people were able to participate. Madam Vice?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. I want to thank the Honorable Minister for that kind of response. And I also want to thank the Lubatum team. Honorable Minister, just one area for you to clarify, which is also in supplement what he has just said. I'm made to understand we have a budget to support the media monitoring firms. So can you tell us the specific roles of the media monitoring firms? Have you received any reports? And what do you make out of those reports? Honorable Minister, you referred to some guidelines, which I have here, and where officials are not able to take up this airtime, you actually have to charge them with negligence of duty. How many officials or RDCs or government officials that have not responded that you have charged for negligence of duty, so that we can move on before you can actually call on the LUBA to give you the statistics, because this is within your mandate. You have a budget, and we believe that it is even you who is supposed to come up with all the information that we are asking for.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Regarding the question of media buying in support to COVID, I would like to thank this Honorable Committee for having convinced Parliament to allocate some funds, about 6 billion, for communication purposes during COVID. The money was received by the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. Right, Honorable Chair, by policy, we agreed at the Ministry that since all media houses were performing the role of informing the public about COVID without any penny, because they had taken some months sensitizing, giving us space to talk about COVID, we agreed as a policy that every media house should be supported with the funds. And the assignment was handed over to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of ICT. But in principle, we agreed that even if it means somebody getting as little as 2 million, we don't care as long as they have received something, because they had done a wonderful job of educating the masses. A report to that effect was compiled after the activity, which was supposed to run for some months, And I think at an appropriate time, since Mr. Watasa, who is directly responsible for that media buying, is present, will be given an opportunity to explain to this honorable committee the technicalities, how the funds were distributed, because they had also to look at the reports from the media monitoring firms to see which radio, which TV has listenership or audience, and where can the funds be put. That's why at times you find that one radio station can get an amount which is higher compared to another. But in principle, we agreed that everyone should be catered for under that arrangement. We talked about the media monitoring firm and the funds. I would also request the same to be attended to by Commissioner Watasa, because they are the ones who receive those reports, to help them in taking informed decisions while preparing the government communication function in one way or another. Then, Honorable Chair, you asked about, I think I've talked about it, Honorable Chair.
Just have we accused of any officials?
Hey, Honorable Chair, Honorable Vice Chair, right now I may not be in position to comment about that because I haven't received any report to that effect. But if we get evidence and facts from the ground, then we can swiftly move in to take action. But right now we thought that everything was going on well, and through the reports we get from the district communication officers, because they are the ones who are mandated to manage and monitor that airtime with the RDCs, they inform us that everything is moving on well. We have also a platform for government communication officers. They tell us that the same airtime, if provided for them, they are also in position to use that airtime to inform and educate the public. And maybe you will allow me also talk about this challenge, that some of the officials may cowardice because of the nature, the way the programs are set. You call a technical person who is not a politician with a politician. And at the end of the day, if you put the two together in a room, definitely this technical person who is supposed to be non-partisan will in a way withdraw. They may not tell you the reasons why they are withdrawing, but these are some of the things we have been getting from them. That if they are called, then why put them with politicians? It's like you are taking them for a debate, not to disseminate. And for them, they want a platform where they can be in position to say, if it's about water, we are doing ABCD. If it's about health, we are doing ABCD. And these are the programs, then the public calls in to give feedback, to ask questions, they are responded to. But if it is taken in that line of politics versus the technical officer, it becomes very hard unless somebody is really solid and ready to face it off with a politician.
Honorable Minister, I'm sorry to interject again. I'm trying to look at the guidelines that we set out in 2014. And somehow you guided that we can have talk shows, in which talk shows we can continue to have a number of people debating government programs. Because we believe that out of debate is the only way we can get out the issues. So in your guidelines, it was clear here that we can have some talk shows for about 40 minutes out of the hour, and then the other calling in time by the listeners. So what did you really mean?
Of course, talk shows, we have seen talk shows that are political and talk shows that are non-political. If you look at the way the programming is done at times, if a talk show is totally taken in the line of politics, however much a person is good, it may be very difficult for them to bring out the government agenda. But if it's balanced, even if you bring maybe an NGO representative, you bring somebody else to give another view how they look at things, then maybe that talk show can be meaningful. But they are political talk shows. They are talk shows that you really look at, and they are indeed political, much as it is prime airtime. If you call somebody a PS or a government communication officer, they will refer you to their minister or somebody else who is a politician. And at times you may find that if the person was not prepared before they are engaged, with other meetings. Maybe they are not even available if they are politicians because of their busy schedules.
Well, I think we will, let's welcome, we have another member who has come in. You should just introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. I'm holding account with
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one issue for this. People have a local radio called PDFM, but they were stopped from operating. I don't know what happened.
PDFM.
It is called the PDFM.
Okay. So the minister will give response on that. We would want to move, because we are interested in getting communication from the petitioners. But maybe for the minister to note, it was our understanding, it could be responded later. It's understanding that the Ministry of Information is organized. You are able to have prior arrangements with the media houses. You are able to give you the slots that are available, and then you plan your manpower, deploy them accordingly, and even probably choose what kind of content is going to be what. And later on, there's follow-up to see how this has fared, and the reports that are coming with. So if that is happening, then most of the times the question of a technical person being ambushed and whatnot should not arise. And when you are technical, we expect you to be very technical in the most aspects. But we will get a detailed response to that later. I wanted to give, and this meeting is not going to drag, I wanted to give about 5 minutes to 5. If they can't fit in there, they will let us know, but I know they will, because the real areas, there are other issues that are general, which we will want, but the real areas that they are focusing on, because I know the minister will be expected in another meeting, but I would want her to listen to you. So you try to summarize, and then we will get the technical response. So let me take the opportunity now to invite our friends from Ruba.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister of ICT, Madam Phyllis Nara, the Chairperson, Committee on Information, Communication, Technology, National Agents, Parliament of Uganda, Honorable Minister of Korea, UCC representatives, and our fellow broadcasters. Honorable Chair, I want to thank you for giving us opportunity to meet you. You know, it has not been easy. I think they have postponed this meeting for 3 times. You know, we are happy that finally we have met you. And I'm so happy that the minister and the regulator are here. Honorable Minister, I'm going to use only 3 minutes. Then I will give 2 minutes to the chairman of MOA to answer financial issues. I will respond to a few things. Before I talk, I want to thank Minister Honorable Nabakoa for giving us money for COVID. At least over 90% of radio stations and TV got the money. We thank you for that. I respond to a few questions. But before I respond to those questions, I want you to note that media in Uganda, everywhere in the world, can be used, if it is well motivated, to transform the whole country. It can be used to do whatever you want in a professional way. I will respond to few queries. One, us as broadcasters, we are here as Ruba, and you came with MOA, because MOA handles things to do with business. We don't have any problem with national events, like presidential advice, reading of the national budget. Those ones we are saying we can give. But the challenges we have, as here they summarized, the Honorable summarized. Government officials, one, it's true they don't turn up to use this airtime. They only turn up during elections. If you go to the village now, everybody is coming to use airtime for government, airtime for government. They come when there are campaigns. And we are saying we cannot allow that. Two, the other district, let me specify, the other district government officials, they now pass through the cows, chairman, whatever, to come. They told them, okay, it's not an allegation because I don't have an evidence on it, but they told them, when they come with money, they tell them that, please, we have a free airtime. Why do you pay money there? The money which is budgeted for in business, in government. So you see them looking for accountability. They are looking for receipts. You know? And that time we cannot allow it as broadcasters. Now, when Honorable Minister talked about doubling, let me give facts. In Uganda here, 80% of the radio stations, especially up-country radio stations, don't earn more than 20 million. Running a radio station takes 40 million and above. Mr. Kateli will add there. So, if because now the government is the main sponsor, the main spender. Because if the government does not put money in those radio stations, I'm telling you, will see these issues like you don't pay media people, you know, like UCC put very strict guidelines in order to get a license. They have very many things in order to get a license, which is really unattainable. We cannot attain those things, over electronic door, over cameras and whatever. How can we attain these things when the airtime, when the government which would be giving money, you are giving it free airtime? Now, Mr. Kateli will talk about the role of monitoring and whatever. I think I want to request that, because now when those people knew that we are giving free airtime, they all communicated, the ministries and whatever. Sincerely, if you can count and see the business that is coming in our stations, maybe once in a while, we do no longer get money from the government. The money came maybe during COVID time. The money can come maybe when there is an emergency, like maybe broadcasts, but they no longer budget for us. So my request is, Honorable Minister, we are not saying that give us free money. No. Let the ministries budget for that money. For us, we shall continue, because originally we have been giving free airtime on emergency issues. Emergency issues like those I'm talking about. If we can continue doing how we used to do, but not making it a license condition. Okay? No, let me allow the Chairman Umar to add, then I can conclude.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable Minister. Thank you for this opportunity. I would start with one of the issues that you asked about the monitoring firms. When media houses are doing business, there's always a third party, which is the monitoring firm that confirms whether that media house actually did that business, which is totally independent from the client and independent from the media house. Another issue, Honorable Chair, is I think the Ministry and of ICT and the Commission also need to look into issues. For example, we have what we call advertising agencies. Now, many of these agencies are not local firms. Most of them are multinational firms, and they manage a lot of money, but they also don't have investments here. For the case of Nigeria, you can't own an agency in a country if there's no local citizen who owns between 50 to 60%. The issue is, you'll find you're doing work for Nile breweries, you're paid by a firm in South Africa, So if anything is to happen, you really don't have you don't have any means or mechanism to reclaim that money if anything goes bad. And also, those farms, nobody is regulating them here. So that creates a gap as well. Then, Honorable Chair, there's also an issue of delayed payments from government agencies and ministries. When media houses do business on behalf of government, and this we have facts, Honorable Chair, which we can share with you by tomorrow, there's a lot of delay. Another issue, Honorable Chair, I want to take a case in point for the Parliament of Uganda. Parliament buys its own media for all the media houses where they're interested. We sign contracts with the Parliament, and Parliament pays these media houses. And that would beat anybody's understanding why other government agencies don't copy from Parliament. Because if the clerk to Parliament is budgeting for media, then that should apply to the same to other government agencies and ministries. Finally, Honorable Chair, as the Chairman Rupa pointed out, we support government on issues, for example, the pandemic. For example, media houses came out and began educating and sensitizing people even before government openly came out to give guidelines and all other issues, all media houses. Under us, we wrote to them, we gave them directives, and they did that job. So by the time even government came out and having the speeches from the president and so on, the media was ahead of everyone. So when we have disasters, we do. The national addresses, we do. All media houses have full teams that stay at Parliament to cover issues to do with Parliament, like we are here in this committee. So, but our humble request and our plea is that for cases where business is supposed to come from ministries and agencies, those agencies, those ministries should budget and should manage their budgets for media. Honorable Chair, we also need to factor in the issue of tax. All these media houses do pay the taxes, the value-added tax, the income tax, and the rest of the taxes. And when we have delayed payments, this affects us. And this is something that we humbly request, Honorable Chair, to also be looked at. And since we got to the issue of central buying, I, for one, have not seen any business coming through central buying. So I think there is still a gap there. I want to thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
So we are through from the petitioners.
Maybe another question.
Because, looking at the gist of your petition, would expect that as you conclude, you restate in specific terms the prayers you have and where you're expecting the intervention of Parliament. And there could be 2, there could be 3. Other areas, because like we told you, we want to encourage dialogue and good communication. Some other issues, if they are harmonized through this interface, we want ourselves to be honest with that and say on this particular issue, we think if it is handled this way, it will be good. So that those others will be either double communication, maybe there is no mechanism for interface with these teams, and so there are many assumptions that are made. Some things may stand, some things may not stand. And so, but the committee would want you to now narrow down to your prayers what do you want out of this meeting in specific terms. As you do that, let me welcome our senior colleague, Honorable Muturu. Yes, you're welcome. Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Our prayer is one, that our government airtime be scrapped completely.
But you had the minister
And
say, the minister was giving a very convincing statement here that you have in a week 100 and how many hours? 168. 168 hours in one week. They just want 1 hour of that. That is 0.6%.
Honorable Minister, true, but we have been giving government airtime. Let the UCC scrap the condition that we should give them 1 hour. But for us, we shall be calling people in case of emergencies. Because that prime time is bought. Sincerely, that prime time, on a daily basis, people come to buy it. My request is 1 hour should be scrapped. Number two, as I had told you, let the government bodies budget for the government airtime. For the radio airtime. Those are my two prayers. We shall continue airing those national events.
Okay.
But
so what has come out is that one, the media owners are saying there are many other, they give the government a lot of platform on different issues, including national events. They are still willing to continue giving government programs, but they don't want it to be mandatory, that you must, apart from the national events. And then two, that they're not feeling, government is not budgeting, parliament is doing to support. And I see, Minister, maybe you clarify, I see a lot of ministries, agencies have media budget. Yeah, yes. When I even UCC, I think what is UCC, in this current budget, you have close to 2 billion. You have close to 2 billion. So maybe the figures are there and you are not paying. I don't know, because UCC alone has on media, communication, PR related work. So it's close to 3 billion from what I saw. But we'll get into that.
those people have the budget, but they don't spend the money. I'm not receiving UCC. If you're advertising like many times in a year, you may advertise like twice in a year. And you pick specific radios, like around 10 in the whole country. So you can imagine when you want tax from us, where do you get the money?
Okay. The other thing we want the minister to give us a practice in the region. Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda. What is the environment like? How are you dealing with in the effort to push through government?
Honorable Chair.